Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today. I can see we've got a few people that have already logged in to the webinar, but I know that we're waiting on a few others, so we'll give it a short moment and then we'll get going. Right, so we will get started. So I hope everyone can see and hear me and see my screen also. I want to thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. As you'll already know, the focus of the session will be on how we can harness the power of technology to offer personalised learning. Now, as you can see from the first slide here, it's being presented by It's Learning alongside MKC Training, who not only design and manage, but also deliver and assess a wide range of artisan, technical, and professional training programs for engineers at many different levels. I mean, all of which underpin their core work with the Royal School of Military Engineering, which I'm sure they'll touch on a little later on, and get into far more detail than I'm able to. Now, before I introduce our speakers, I would like to quickly cover a few housekeeping topics. So firstly, today's webinar is being recorded and we'll be able to share a link with you after the session is complete, and encourage you to revisit the content, of course, but also to share it with colleagues or anyone that you feel may benefit from this. We'll also make sure that all slides are available for those that may wish to scan through these in their own time. And lastly, there is due to be a Q&A section at the end of the session, time dependent, of course. Hence, we are keen to invite your comments and questions, but if you could please perhaps type these into the chat, and I'll either pose this to the speakers at the end, or potentially if you know, it works for John and Kevin, potentially throughout if that makes sense at the time. Okay, I don't know what's gone on with that slide. There we go. So who do we have presenting today? So firstly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Jordan Capel, and I head up the UK sales team at It's Learning. I've acted as the main port of call for MKC Training throughout their migration to and implementation of It's Learning as their VLE, their learning management system of choice. In a short moment, I'll be passing you on to Dr. John Dynes, the Divisional Manager for Construction at MKC Training, who's a passionate advocate of developing and supporting people to achieve excellence through the use of technology. So we're really excited to have him with us today. John is accompanied by Kevin Pollard, their Faculty Manager for Design and Development, who, as the title suggests, is responsible for the development of all courses in collaboration with their subject matter experts. So it'd be great to hear Kevin's thoughts on this technology and personalised learning as well. And lastly, I'll introduce Michael McHugo, a member of our sales and account management team at It's Learning, who has played a key part in the facilitation of this webinar. I'm sure we'll have questions for John and Kevin throughout, so it'd be good to put a name to a face a little later on. So as you can see, I've laid out a rough agenda for this webinar, and in a little while I'll pass you on to John to cover some of the topics stated in the slide here. But before I do, just to reiterate, we do have a question and answer section at the end, and yeah, feel free to post your questions to the chat and we'll try to answer as many of them as we can throughout. Any that we don't, we'll follow up on after this session. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to John and Kevin. So let me just change the sharing permissions here to John, who I believe is
Kevin, please, Jordan.
Oh, to Kevin first. Yep, no problem. Okay.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm John Dynes, and Kev is sat here on my right. Jordan's just giving you an explanation of what we're going to talk about, or an introduction to what we're going to talk about. And we're using slides as a backdrop, so we're going to be talking about other things around the slides as well. So you might have questions about the slides, you might have questions about some of the things we're going to talk about. We're happy to take both of them.
Okay, everybody, if you've got a smart device, if you'd like to take it out, please, and download Zapper. You can find it on zapper.co.uk. It's the app's on Google Play, or you can go to the code on your screen. And we'll talk about this later, why it would be worthwhile getting it. So that's Zapper, zapper.co.uk, and you can find it on Google Play.
We'll give everyone a couple of seconds to download that.
Yeah. There'll be another chance a bit later on to download this as well. And once you get the link to the presentation, you can play with this to your heart's content, and hopefully you'll find it very, very useful.
So I think what we'd start off by doing is just giving a little bit of an introduction to us as an organisation, where we've come from to where we've got to. So we're a wholly owned subsidiary of MidKent College, and we were set up in 2008 for a 30-year contract to deliver the trade training into the Royal Engineers. So we have the vast majority of their training that comes through Brompton Barracks here in Chatham with us. When we took over, you can see the stats in 2008. It was okay, you know, you're looking at that and you're going, actually that's performing relatively well. But there was a loss of training ratio of 12%. 90 odd accidents or incidents, health and safety incidents throughout the year, and trainee satisfaction was at 75%, and about a quarter of the staff were level 5 teachers. And over the time, we've changed dramatically as we've looked through it. So over years, we started to introduce a transformation program where we zoned different training areas. We started looking at the course structure, the content. We started developing our trainers. We started focusing on the student experience and isolating an individual student experience really quite early on in this process, or 11 years ago now. And over time, we've introduced enhancements. So we've improved our workshops. We now have iPads. All of our learners have iPads. We use task cards so we can do electronic e-portfolios that people can work on practical assessments in a live environment and capture that data. We've used our e-learning platforms to enable reach back. So wherever our learners are in the world, they can reach back into the live information, and it contains or continues to be live all the time. So they're always getting the latest information. We've looked at using technology-enabled learning, and we use it where it's appropriate. And we've got our own bespoke model. It's our accelerated learning model. It's called Fixed Mastery Variable Time. And what that allows us to do is learners move through their learning journey, and at the point that they reach capability or competence, they move on to the next thing, which means that our trainers are now maybe in one workshop, they might have half a dozen people on half a dozen different tasks. So their role has changed phenomenally in this as well. Now look at the statistics that we had in 2021, so last year's statistics. Our loss to training ratio was 3.5%. We only had 6 incidents. A couple of years ago, we had 0 incidents. We're a really safety conscious environment. Now we've reduced the staff. That's starting to creep up as we build into new opportunities, new business opportunities. So we're coming back up with our staff headcount, but all of our trainers are either level 5 teacher qualified or are working towards it. And our trainee satisfaction, because of those measures, has leapt up to 97%. We've reduced time in training, we've cut costs, we've got a phenomenal pass rate, 95, 96% pass rate, and for anything that could be laid purely at the trainer or the training organisation's door, we have a 100% pass rate. So is that the end of the journey? Absolutely not. Where are we going forward now? You can see our innovation model. We're looking at the way we use technology to design or to develop. We're looking at alternative reality, so virtual, augmented, mixed realities and how they come into it. We're looking at additive manufacturing, the 3D sort of modeling that we can do inside things. Also our analytics and our performance. So building together, we're looking at driving ourselves forward, not sitting on where we've got. And to do that, we need to have excellent improvement internal systems. We need to have improved communication channels. We've introduced coaching programs, mentoring programs, our relationship intelligence program, our equality, diversity and inclusivity agenda running through to 2025. We've even started looking at now how we can decarbonise programs and decarbonisation learning opportunities. So it's not just about technology, it's about enabling staff to work with and for that technology. Next slide, please, Ken.
And what we've identified is that whilst we're talking here for up to 2,000 soldiers a year in different courses, different trades, management, etc., this also applies to the small courses, 5 people, which may be here for a week, etc. So it's not just the fact that we're doing it for courses that can last in excess of 180 days. We're also talking about the smaller courses as well, 5 days, 10 days. And we're also using it internally for our own training. So both areas that we're designing and building, it's not just for the soldiers here within the RSME, but also for our colleagues and our own staff.
So one of the things we did was, and when we started looking at this, we were looking at innovation and how does innovation sit? And we came up with this quadrant model. Bottom left-hand corner, it's incremental changes. So it's just the developing, the ongoing, continual changes that you do. And I have to say right at the beginning, this model will be different for every single company and potentially even different areas inside companies. So where we see something as incremental, someone else might see that as sustaining. That's where you're doing a significant enhancement into your current approaches. Perhaps you may then be looking at more radical things, so looking at new technologies, looking at disruptive technologies, modernizing your current provision. So a further shift into that innovation space. And then there's one in the bottom right hand corner, the distractor. So this is the place where it can be so much fun and so interesting to work to, and you can look at so much technology, but is it going to add value? Is it the right technology? Is it financially viable for you? Is it even technically viable for you? So there's a lot of rabbit holes you can fiddle down in through to there. So we work on this principle called ADDIE, which is about analysing, it's about designing, it's about developing, it's about implementing, and it's about evaluating, which has allowed us to move away from a sheep dip approach to training to creating either online or face-to-face learning that's suitable for everyone. And we constantly evaluate and develop that change. And I think what that leads us to think about really is that all learners are individuals. And when you're looking at anything, you need to look at how that's going to affect every single learner in your organization. You're not really creating learning for the median learner. If you're doing personalized learning, you're creating that learning for that person as an individual. So you need to think about making sure that you've got your equality, diversity and inclusivity embedded throughout everything you're doing and at all levels. But then look at your technology and your technology approach. Does that work for everyone? Could it disadvantage someone? And if it could disadvantage someone, how can you overcome those issues? So understanding your learners and where you're using technology to support them is really important. But then also look at what the content you're developing, the learning approach you're developing. It's really easy to look back in history and design learning for what happened before, because you've got all that knowledge, you've got that experience. What you need to do is design learning for what's coming up in the future. Technology is going to change. You need to embrace technology, but you mustn't become bound by it. That training, that technology needs to add value wherever you're using it, ask yourself the question, is this adding value or am I using a shiny gizzard? Look at different tools that you can use to support all the learners at their individual levels. Now, learners will use that technology differently as well. So you need to plan for how to learn, how to enable them to learn using it in many different ways. That might be down through your learning platform, your learning management system. Whatever learning management system you use, it must be responsive. It must be responsive to your development needs. It must be responsive to your learners' needs. So if you're using a bespoke platform or a software as a service provider type platform, whoever's running it, they need to work with you to enable you to get the best out of that platform. So partnership is now becoming the new norm. We're not developing training in isolation. We're developing training, we're developing and using technology as part of a partnership. And that means that in some organizations, cultural shifts are inevitable. But think about the different types of learners we have now. Modern day learners, and we're all modern day learners. So we're exceptionally busy, we're overworked, and we're going to get more overworked. We might have multiple roles, we might have multiple responsibilities. What does that mean to how we're going to consume technology, consume learning? We can be easily distracted because we've got something constantly happening to us. So when we're creating learning programs, they need to constantly engage people. New learners crave knowledge, and younger people coming through, they're even more searching for that knowledge, but they haven't got time to waste. They want that knowledge, they want that information there to hand. So your technology needs to enable that to happen. It needs to support their needs, not yours.
And just to cap on one of those, we've been developing some videos, and I've been watching them, and I love them. I think they're fantastic. They show the Royal Engineers in all their trades, and it's a video to support soldiers coming here to know what they're going to do on their trade course and how they can utilise their trade in an operational environment. I had one of my younger colleagues come up to me and said, "That is far too slow. You oldies like looking at this stuff that's really slow, whereas us younger people like it a little bit faster." So you've got to balance the fact that we're developing for the young generation of today. They want things bite-sized, they want it fast. So personalised training looks at them as individuals. And what we do is we've got the opportunity to run that video a bit faster for those that want it a bit faster, slow it down for those of us that enjoy it a bit slower. So again, all of this needs your colleagues' training. Peter Honey used to say a long time ago, you've got to learn how to learn. And here, over the last few years, we've been learning how to learn together. It's a different way of gathering and using that information. And as John quite rightly said, it's the culture shift. It's a culture for the soldiers, our learners, and certainly for our instructors and our colleagues. How we deliver and develop learning now is totally different to how we did it 9 years ago. And moving forward, we certainly see that the learning development area is certainly going to change over the next few years.
So when we look at technology and when we look at innovation, I think the first thing we do is we look at what our organizational needs are. And as we look at that, there are many, many different things we can think of. So when we talk about technology, we tend to think about it's going to change learning, but actually technology might be underpinning the way you're designing things. So looking at different design tools, it might be how you're developing information, or maybe the delivery mechanisms you're going to do. They're all drawing on technologies. It could be the scheduling tools that you're looking at using, or perhaps the resourcing tools, or maybe, as I've already spoken about, the LMS platforms. Are they delivering what you need in the way you need it? Another area we'd be looking at is the data analytics tools. Are we able to bring that information into a central place, to analyze it, to compare different forms of information, rather than having information sitting in a silo here, and a silo here, and a silo there, and never the twain shall meet? Your information needs to come together, your data rather, needs to come together to create useful information. So that means you need data sharing tools. And as you start to look at your learning, you might want to look at how you're going to evaluate your learning. That could be evaluating your learning, your assessments, your materials, your students' experience. It might be evaluating your onboarding process, or perhaps you're looking at an evaluation where you're looking at is our design approach right? Is our development tools right? So you're constantly evaluating. All of that data becomes information that can be really useful to understand where you're going to do. And as I say, I'm sure that many of you are like me. You get constant emails coming through that will say, here's this piece of technology, here's this piece of technology, here's this piece of technology. Evaluate the technology. Is that technology going to do what I need to do? Is it going to be useful to help me create the learning experience my learners need to take them forward? Because at the end of it, it's the learner that's fundamental and central to this whole process.
And as part of that, what we've identified is that we've got a mechanism where the soldiers can feed back to us about the learning. If there's anything that they found really difficult, they couldn't understand, that's important information for us, so we can look at that training and make sure that working with them, we can change it to meet their need. Likewise, any legislation changes, we can get that from the people that we work for. They can give us that and we can implement it straight away. Or from our instructors, they're a vast source of knowledge. So again, if there's something new, something that we need to look at, we'll see if it's appropriate, and again, we can add that to it. But legislation changes are done once, and again, everybody's got access to that same information. So we've been talking about personalised learning, we've been talking about bits and pieces of technology, but why technology? Why not? We're in a position where we can share information, help people to learn, and not just in a central location. So one of the first things I would suggest is you learn to use what you've got already effectively. Microsoft Office, your LMS, other tools that you're learning to use, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, etc. Learn how to use those effectively, and you'll be surprised how much more they can do for you. But then, going on to enhanced learning experiences, they appeal to simplify explanations and tasks. So I'm going to show you an engine later on. And if you think an engine block in front of you, inside there is these things that go up and down and turn around and go around. Just imagine it. We've now got a tool where we can show that and enhance that learning for somebody. And they've got access to that no matter where they are in the world, 24/7. We can look at different assessment approaches. So we look at formative and summative assessments and quizzes. So again, it's just ensuring that the learning development that's going into somebody, we make sure that it's staying in there. And we also notice that they use it as a competition between themselves. So again, look at how assessments can be used as part of a quiz, as part of their learning experience. Make it fun. Now, all of this enables reach back, as we've just mentioned, anywhere in the world, which has been really, really effective. But at the same time, anyone that thinks that they're going to go into e-learning and fetch this as part of their company, then that they're going to save immense amount of costs. Later on, you will do. In the first instance, there is that investment in training, in your hardware, in your networks, and getting the content built. And it does not happen overnight. And you need the champions from your senior management down to the people going to use it on the shop floor. So again, this culture shift again. So cost is probably a little bit expensive at the front, and MKC Training knew that, and they took ownership of that, and then they informed the RSME, this is what we're going to do for them. And again, the RSME come on board, and working in partnership, it's worked really well. Accessibility, you're going to make sure they're accessible to everybody. It's responsive across all devices, anywhere where you can get e-learning or web access. At the same time, it's got to be consistent and to a standard. I'm sure you've been to many presentations where you've got different fonts on screens, you've got different presentation slides, you know, that have been done by different people. So your course content, whether it's for colleagues, whether it's for soldiers, whether it's for somebody else, needs to be standardized. And that is in itself impactful. Reproduction, design once, use many times. It takes time to do something. So does it add impact? Does your cost benefit analysis work for it? Can you use it more than once? And again, I'll show you in Engine in a few slides and what we did with that. And then, like I said, you've got alternative delivery approaches to meet the requirements of the individual. Blended learning, I'll come on to that later, but basically, nothing is off the table. Whether it's using technology to deliver learning, whether it's face-to-face, everything works. And it's all of these different technologies, methods that come together that form the blended learning. And it's not about the instructor, it's about the individual receiving that learning, the individual that's taking ownership of that learning. Moving forward, again, lots of research, talking to universities, talking to other organizations. We're looking at haptic environments, where we could utilize AI, chatbots. We are looking at adaptive learning pathways for our colleagues, for our mandatory training and everything else. If I wanted to become a divisional manager, what's available now for me to get those next qualifications and steps to enable me to be a doctor? So again, we've got that for our colleagues. It's quite difficult to do it for the soldiers because they've got a specific laid out learning pathway that they must do. But we're already supporting them to look at different things. So again, helping the soldiers look at that. We're doing it for our colleagues and now looking at it for other people away from here. Alternative realities, augmented, virtual, mixed, and there's a whole tranche of other alternative realities being developed day by day. You cannot keep up with all of them. And when you start looking at them, make sure that what you're looking at will add value. It is not always the shiny new toy that will add value. It might be a photo, it might just be a discussion, or it might be something in a virtual environment. Gamification adds a bit of fun. People like competition. They always like to be better than somebody else. So gamification, we've added it in little bits. We're not talking World of Warcraft or Call of Duty. We may have something that if you get it wrong on the screen, it simulates blowing up or it simulates falling to bits. And again, it adds a little bit of fun. One thing that has been very successful is video content. And the video that we've developed is not only utilised by the soldiers, and again, they can reach back and look at that video no matter where they are in the world, but also by us. We've all got houses, so if I'm fitting a radiator, I use the content that's online for me to use at home. So again, develop ones for a reason, but we can use it for other reasons as well. Digitize your content, put it online, make it accessible, be a leader. The days of paper content, it's not gone, but if you're looking at decarbonisation, we're looking at making a better world, let's put it online. 3D printing, again, everybody wants 3D this, 3D that, fantastic. Identify the reason for it. Identify who's going to use it. Purchase it and then use it effectively. We've got 3D machines. And again, we use them within the training environment, very, very powerful tool. So again, we've identified where we can use it. And I do say, you look at this stuff and make sure it's required by you to do what you need to do.
I think just jumping in while Kev gets on to the next slide, there's just something else to think about in all of that is where we've used technology, we've now created programs that our client can use to teach themselves. So there's almost an altruistic process in here as well. But in doing that, we've used the technology and the content we've already created. We've just used it in a different way to enable them to do other stuff, to develop their learning and to become more autonomous learners themselves, more autonomous controllers of their own learning.
And if you just look at the micro content learning, and that's a snapshot of where we are now. Of interest, we've actually looked up some TikTok products. Fantastic, bite-sized learning, impactful, in your face. And again, a lot of the younger adults like looking at this. We've looked at higher e-learning content. We've looked at videos. We've looked at other elements of social media. all of them are embraced within blended learning. We've just done a suite of videos for the School of Military Engineering, and it will be sent down to the soldiers in their current training, and it'll give them a taster of what they're going to cover on their courses here. And again, each video takes about 15 minutes, but it shows them what they're going to do in welding, what they're going to do in surveying, what they're going to do in carpentry, bricklaying, design draftsman. And again, it's one of those things that is actually very, very powerful, rolling and engaging with them, and it's getting them to look forward to what they're going to do next. And so this is our blended approach. Nothing is off the table. And we sat down with the soldiers, our learners, our instructors, and other people within our environment, our company. And how would you like to learn? What's the next thing that's coming forward? Where do you want to be? And this is the results. Now, this is near enough exactly the same as what our soldiers, our learners wanted, and what we want to do. Augmented reality. Useful, not so much a requirement, you know, it's the old singing, old dancing, new person on the block, but augmented reality's got its place. Enhanced use of video and non-text. Basically, our learners want less text on the screen. They want more animation, more video, more problem solving, which you see in the left quadrant at the top. And again, that gave us a lot of indications of where we needed to go with our course design and putting our e-learning content together. Gamification, again, we're not talking World of Warcraft, Call of Duty. What we're talking about is putting a problem in there, which is also a game. And so again, we've got different pathways. If you choose path A, that takes you down certain routes. If you choose path B, that takes you down certain routes. And again, it all keeps the soldiers' minds ticking over, and it keeps them engaged. And then finally, flexible multi-device access. This is making all this content accessible on every device. So whether it's on Android, Windows, iPhone, and all the various web browsers. Again, it's meeting their requirement. Now, this was done a couple of years ago. And again, we've already started asking people, what do they want? So what we're doing now is doing the research for the next 5 and 10 years. Where we are now is where we wanted to be 10 years ago. It's steady state for us now. What we're doing now is looking for the next type of soldier that's coming through here and how they want to learn. And again, better supporting our colleagues, because they need to be trained to deliver this. They need to learn how to learn. And our blended approach. Most of you will recognize the left-hand side, the traditional face-to-face learning, the sage on the stage, everybody get around me, let me show you what we're doing. Here's a précis, here's a handout. Okay, everybody learn what you're doing. Now we're going to sit down at the end of 9 months and do an exam, a memory test. So again, what we've tried to do is, while that is still essential, we've also tried to look at, well, how else can we do this learning? So now we've looked at off-site virtual learning, teaching experiences, doing those problem solving, using technology to enhance that learning. And so what we've got is blended learning environments. We still use face-to-face. We still use the instructor doing one-to-one support to that soldier that needs that help. But those that can do it, those that are going on with it, those that understand, then we also have the qualification in this already. We're not holding them back. They're moving forward at the speed that they want to learn. Those in the middle that are doing okay, we can still push them forward. And then those that are really struggling, we can fetch them in. We use peer-to-peer learning, we use one-to-one learning. We've got that time available to support that soldier. One of the best comments we've ever received was of the soldier's mother. Normally what would happen if a soldier got injured or something, they would be taken off their course and then loaded onto the next course, which might be a year in the future. That affects their career and it affects their promotion, which in turn affects money. What we've got with this now is if somebody's injured and they've already shown us that they are capable of catching up, that soldier, while they're convalescing at home, they can still utilise this content to keep up to date with the e-learning, to keep up to date with what's going on. So they're doing flip learning, so that when they do come back, we'll check to make sure that they've done that learning, but we can get them doing the practical tasks. And again, they will stay with that course and continue. The parents, when they contacted us, were so appreciative that we have supported their soldier, their young adult, that they were absolutely thankful that we did that. And it's something like that that adds value to what we do. And it makes us excited, and it makes us realise that potentially we have got something here which is supporting many people, we're supporting individuals. So blended learning, it's the best of both worlds. Nothing is thrown away, but there's lots there on the table to support that soldier with their learning.
I think the thing that sits in there with this as well, Kev, is that it's constantly evolving, it's constantly developing, constantly looking at stuff. And while we're looking at technology, technology isn't the central driver. No, it's the learner that's the central driver, yeah? And it's about using technology to enable that learner to achieve, rather than using technology because it's there. Correct. It's about selecting the right technology for the right approach. And you might use technology for one solution, but not for another because it doesn't work for that solution, or you might use a different technology.
Correct. If you're going to strip an engine, as an example, you need to strip an engine. You need to feel the weight. You need to feel how sharp it is, how slip it is. So we can show them how to do it on an animation, on a video, and then to do it step by step, we can have it on that smart device next to the soldier, next to the engine, take off these 5 bolts, take off the 5 bolts, remove it, and do stage by stage. We've done that, an instructor showing everybody, and then they go back to the machines. Now they've got that next to them to do it themselves. And we're currently developing 2 virtual reality projects. One's being piloted now, and the other one will be piloted by a team of clerks of works and senior NCOs to show them how to do construction in a virtual environment. Again, early stages, very excited about it, and hopefully it will have a bigger impact, not just for the military, but for others as well. So all of you out there involved in course design, involved with training needs analysis, why digitize? It helps you to embrace technology. Timescales and challenges. Of course, as a designer, I go to my line manager and say, this is going to take X amount of days. They don't believe me. It's a shock to the system. There may be tears, tantrums, but what does happen is I explain why. And if ever in that position, please have a look at Chapman Alliance. They've got a whole range of how long it takes to develop this content from level 1 content to level 4. And each of those have got another 3 levels within them. And it tells you how long to design, how long to deliver. And it's a tool for you to use how you want to use it. You've also got that followed up by Cal Cap. And again, he will tell you how long it does take to develop material. And the 4 levels of e-learning interactivity, depending on who you talk to, there's 4 levels. In other places, there's 3 levels. We utilize the 4 levels. Level 1 potentially is a book on a screen. If you're going to do a book on a screen, give them a book. A lot cheaper, saves time. However, it's not then digitized. So from there, you've then got level 2. Level 2, you may have a video in it, you may have a little bit of animation in it, but again, it's taking that next stage further. And what we work in is between level 2 and level 3, where we've got quizzes, we've got animation, we've got video, and we started to move at the top end level 3 with virtual reality, and we've got augmented reality. In this case, level 4 is using the bigger simulators, aircraft simulators and everything else. So again, look at the 4 levels of e-learning interactivity and how you can use them effectively to support your learning. Please remember, in reality, putting a PowerPoint presentation online is not really e-learning. Yes, you put it online, but it's only level 1. you might as well just do a normal face-to-face learning for that. What do you need? You've got to say the right approach. You've got to make sure that you've got the technology in place, the people in place, the software in place, the learning management system in place. They've all got to be trained, and then make sure that the person that you're delivering that training to can use it effectively. And don't forget, all of this is not about the trainer, it's about how the learner embraces what you're telling them. It's how they learn. So always employ technology, knowledge, skills-based assessments, and use it effectively.
It's about bringing your learning to life, isn't it?
It is.
It's about how can we make technology. I mean, those 4 screens that you can see down at the bottom, they're all part of our e-learning content that move, that engage, that make sounds, that are live interactions.
And what we're looking at now is the military have just released a new requirement, and it's train as we fight, fight as we train. So again, once we've done the e-learning, we've done the task cards, the practical tasks, they've stripped the engine, everything else. What we've got to do now is put this into a operational environment. So again, we've just developed a 3 to 5 day course on running generators in a military context, which actually is going to be running it day and night. They're going to be service day and night in a tactical situation. So again, we've taught them the theory, they've learned how to do it practically, and now we're going to put that into a military environment. So again, all of this stuff is moving forward. All of it looks at the end product where the soldier's doing it for real. So if you manage to download Zapper, we just spend a couple of minutes on this. If you've got it downloaded, you'll see the 2 circles on the poster in front of you. If you shine or put your phone next to one of the circles, what should happen on your screen is you'll either see a video and an animation, or a longer video and another animation. We put these around our workshops. On some of them we've got models where we've got a small barcode or Zapper, and you can use your phone and it will show you a video of how that joint is made. One of the workshops got a series of these around the workshops covering health and safety, and part of the soldier's induction is that we'll go around those 9 posters and look at the health and safety in that area, whether it's kosh, whether it's paint, whether it's a machine that can be dangerous, where they put the rubbish. And the final one is an assessment. And again, a little bit of fun, but they can use that whenever they want. Can you measure how successful these are? Probably not. But if you didn't have them, the soldier wouldn't be looking for things. And people are inquisitive. If they see something on a wall, they want to know what it does. They want to know what it shows. And once they see something on their mobile device, their smart device, and it's moving, it's talking, it's doing something, they want to know more. So again, you can develop these and use these in as many areas as you want. We've actually got John, where on one of the posters, he's describing how to do a calculation. So again, you can use this anywhere you want in different areas, and the only thing that's limiting you is your imagination.
Not only with that, we can also use that for pulling in resources. So you can have a QR code that says, oh, I need some more PPE. You can automate your processes. You can have those linking to your safe systems of work. So you can have the post there, they log on that, they get the safe system of work. What does that mean? It means that your people are always using the latest data. They're not using something that you printed out and it's gone out of date. You're always accessing your latest data. That can be really quite powerful as well. But we can also get direct feedback on how our training's gone, because we'll have these, how was your day, how was your lesson posters, and our learners can go in, they can zap on that and they can give us direct feedback. What that means is if there's something that someone doesn't understand, our leaders, our managers get that information straight away, and they can get that resolved for the next day so that it doesn't become a problem. Technology working for us, not against us.
Thank you. So here we've got an engine that one of my team developed. As you can imagine, very talented. It's been developed from scratch. What we looked at here was cost versus time benefit. Was there a benefit behind doing it? Yes. The soldier looking at that engine block cannot see what's inside it. And if you're trying to get them to imagine what an engine looks like, how it all strips down, it's very, very difficult until you start doing it. So we've done this. No matter where they are in the world, they can access this animation. And on the actual lesson, as they click on the exhaust, the flywheel, the head gasket, etc., it gives you an explanation about what it is and why it is. Now, this took 3 months to develop. However, this engine is now used in a significant amount of other modules. I believe it's 9. Each part of it being used in different ways. And again, you can have this on your smart device next to that engine block. And as you're stripping things out, you can see where it goes, what it does, and why it's doing that. So again, instead of an instructor stood there and 13 people, 12 people stood around them, can you see me undo this bolt? Now everyone's in charge of their own learning. They will stand at their machine and they will do it themselves. The instructor's still there to support them. It can be shown on the big screen as well, but it's now focused on the learner learning.
This is just a different way. It's the same engine, but it's looking at it from a different perspective. It's making use of a different part or a different capability in that model. So here what we're going to do is we're going to look inside the engine and have a look at how the cycle's actually working. Imagine if you're trying to teach that, and certainly when I was learning that, we were learning on chalkboards written up on the wall with drawings, and then we'd colour in the times when the fluid's coming in, the exhaust, the expansion, the explosion. We would be working through that in slow time. Just looking at that, and you can see how that engine works inside. It's a really clever piece of kit. Okay.
Yeah. So again, looking at that takes time, but it's used a number of times. And probably the best bit about all of this, whether it's a video, animation, everything else, when the soldiers leave here, they're working in different time zones, different areas in the world. So your content has got to be made available 24/7. And that's one beauty behind digitizing your content, putting it online. As long as that person's got access to Wi-Fi, to the internet, they can view this at any time all over the world. And one bonus behind this, as I mentioned earlier, is soldiers are now actually doing flipped learning. And again, they're doing the practical lesson, they're going back to the rooms at night, they're learning this, and then they're coming straight on the shop floor, and then they're going over the practical aspects. So again, digitizing it, using the technology has supported us in no way.
Just to really wrap this all up together before we have a couple of minutes for questions, to go down through this route, to start using technology effectively, you need managerial support. You need technology-enabled champions throughout your organization, from your senior leadership team right the way down through to your trainers, to your administrative staff. Everyone needs to be on board with it. Your data sharing, your LMS platforms, they need to be accessible and they need to be interlinked so you can pull information from all areas. Technology-enabled learning is fantastic where it adds value, but go back to our innovation quadrant, be aware of when it becomes a distractor, and support and train your staff to maximize the benefits that you can get from it. I think, Jordan, that's it. Now we've got a couple of minutes to take any questions you have, if there are any.
Thanks very much, guys. That was all very interesting. I'm actually going to pass over to Mike, who I think has a question of his own, perhaps, or in fact, it might be on behalf of Beth.
Yes, I can see Beth Snowden in the chat, John and Kevin, has asked for a scenario where you'd use 3D printing with your students.
Make training aids. So you can use 3D printing to enable you to create a live model sitting down there that people can look at it. So it works where the training aid might be too expensive and you can't actually buy it in, or you're going to destroy it. So create something out of 3D. They're cheap, they're really easy, they're so accurate and so much detail in it. It allows you to do live modeling on the shop floor.
Yeah. There's another couple of examples, military based, I understand, but again, it's using that 3D support. So we build bridges, big Meccano bridges, very heavy, quite costly. The model of that bridge is as expensive as a real one. So if you're looking at bending moments, you're looking at angles of reposes and center of gravity, you can use that model to show that. So what we've done, what our colleagues have done, is they've done a 3D print of that bridge. So instead of spending £20,000 on another metal model, we've now got something that cost about £500, does exactly the same. Mine warfare, when we're searching for booby traps for munitions, obviously we've got the real thing to look at. But if we want to put soldiers under pressure when they're looking for things, we can use 3D models that if you do it wrong, it presses and it could let off smoke. So again, it's an effective use of a 3D asset as a training device. We've also used it in another couple of ways where we've actually printed out, and again, this is just to show some young officers how we can develop a area. So instead of just using a map, we've actually printed that map out in 3D. So again, the soldiers now have got something the size of 2 tables, what we've got here, with that 3D map on it. So instead of making a model, we've got a 3D printout. And again, they can look at where they're going to situate their mines, bridges, and everything else. So for training, it's got many uses. It's just your imagination that may hold you back.
Thanks, Kevin. We've got a few more questions coming in. Another one from Beth. Beth's asking if you design your 3D animations in-house or work with a design partner.
We do everything in-house. When MKC decided to go down this route, the training transformation route, we got course designers. They then funded a team for me to recruit, put in place, and so they develop all of our 3D animations and everything else. I've also got instructional designers who work with the SMEs. They're embedded with them. So again, what works, what doesn't work, how will this impact? Will this work, won't it work? So again, working with the SME, we've got a team there that develops stuff in-house. We do have some content developed out of house, but predominantly we develop everything in-house.
But when we use out of house, it has to come back in through our quality control system to make sure that it's to the standard that we're looking for. And we've had some out of house where we've not used them because they weren't producing to the standard we wanted.
Correct.
Another question from Richard is: have you looked at any gamification of learning? So I imagine, Richard, do you mean more in terms of what types of technology for gamification potentially?
Right. That would be for one of my technical SMEs. We have looked at some of the different platforms where they build games, and I've got 2 people who are very, very interested in this. But again, working with trades, carpentry, joinery, etc., from your level 2 soldier whose first introduction to a trade up to your officer who's doing their master's degree in professional qualified engineering, we've not yet come across where we would need a game to support that training. We're developing the skills, but we haven't utilised them yet. But yeah, we've certainly looked at the gaming platforms and the software to support that.
I think the other thing about gaming is if you look at games, you look at the way it's constantly moving, it's constantly changing, there's constant challenges, and we use that concept in our training development. So in a way, yes, and in another way, we're still working on those sorts of things.
Okay, I think so I was going to say, I think Richard added to that to probably simplify the game sort of like thing in terms of, have you used the concept of badges, rewards, different levels across your learning at all?
Yeah, we looked at badges and we looked at different levels, and we broached that with the soldiers and they didn't want it at that time. I mean, it's something that, again, like I say, we're looking at this again moving forward. Certainly for what we're doing with this learning and the LMS there and what we're doing for other customers, that's something that we will be looking at, because if you look at the, you've got the briefcase with your qualification badges in them to use with CIPD, Institute of Management. Again, we're looking at that. But with the soldiers, they weren't that interested in that moving forward. They just wanted to know that, have we passed our course? Are we effective in what we do? Can I go to my regiment? So again, it's just those different mindsets.
Okay. Sorry, another question from Richard was on your use of VR. Do you use that currently?
Virtual reality, we've designed and developed it, and we've put it into one program area, and it's the construction materials technician. One of the practical assessments they need to do is go out and look at contaminated ground. Now, normally they'll go out to the ground and they'll put some washing up liquid on the ground and pretend it's contaminated. They can't dig, so they can't go through all of those drills. So what we've done is we've simulated a contaminated piece of ground where they can dig down and they can do through all of the process involved with that, from investigation, PPE, what next, who to report all of this stuff. So we have developed that. It's been piloted. The feedback from the soldiers has been very, very positive. We're currently developing another virtual reality environment for setting up and running a construction site in a military context initially. Now that construction materials technician contaminated site will be incorporated in the construction site as one of the things later on. So the first thing is setting up the site. The second part is managing the site, and then obstacles on that site, such as power cuts, such as flooding, contaminated ground, will also be incorporated in as well. And again, it comes back to this: develop once, use many times.
And do you do so that is that individuals going through those sort of scenarios, or would that be group?
It will be groups. What we've done is, again, it can be looked at on their smart device. So the person with the headset on, in this case, we're using Oculus. We're looking at the Microsoft headset, and we're looking at how we can utilize that as well. So currently using Oculus, and whilst they're looking at it in the device, it's also on the ProWise screen. So everybody can see what that person is looking at within the virtual environment. They can talk to each other. And again, as things are being manipulated, they can then look at that and they can discuss it, they can manipulate it some more, and then they can look at not the correct solution, but the advised solution for what they're trying to set up. So again, in the headset individual, we're currently looking at how we can use 2 and 3 headsets and interact within that environment. And at the moment, the work we're doing on that is looking really, really good. And we're hoping to pilot that within the next month. But like I say, everything we do has got to be able to be shown on every device worldwide. So if you've not got a headset, you can still see that content on your smart device. But we are doing virtual reality because in this case, it does add value and it's the right thing to do.
Oh, fantastic, thank you. I think one last thing from Richard was just, if anything, what do you do to maintain the flow state of learning?
The flow state of learning. There's constant challenge, there's constant movement. It's about doing stuff in small consumable chunks. So we looked at that BBC data where people are looking at the different ways they're engaging learning. If you create something that's going to take hours to do, people are going to get distracted. They're going to stop. So you need to have these things that link, that drive, that move through, but also that create a desire to learn, to find out the next piece. So I've just captured all this piece of knowledge. Where can I use it next? Examples might be on some of the bigger programs we're using, where we're taking the learning that we've done here and then we're moving it out into the field with our unit artisan training program, which is being delivered by the troop themselves to their soldiers to keep their learning live. I think the other thing, and we have spoken about it occasionally through this session, is we talked about chatbots and where we're using it and how we get using our reach back. One of the things that we're developing is our learners don't work 24 hours a day. They work an 8 till 4:30 day. So if someone's got a question, a query, they need to have that question or query answered at any time. We're developing chatbots that start to use artificial intelligence to pull that information through. Again, the idea behind that is that if there is a question, it can be maybe directed to a solution for the learner. So the learner's an autonomous learner, they can drive themselves. And if not, it comes back into us for a central response. To drive learning, it's about putting in place as many mechanisms as you can that people can continue to engage all the time.
And the fixed margin variable tie that we've also mentioned. If you've got 10 soldiers, 5 of them will move forward at a faster pace, on average 5, move forward faster pace than the other 5. So they can move forward as they will. The other 5 will move forward at increments, and again, the one-to-one support's there for them. What we've done in the workshops, we've actually zoned workshops. So in one area, for example, welding, you might have a level 2 student doing basic welds. You might have a level 1 student doing more advanced welds because he's on the next level of course. You might have another one doing a different part of level 2 training. So again, what we're looking at is how to make learning, the flow of learning through the organisation more effective and efficient as well. So it's not a case of they all move through 10 at a time. So again, that's what we've got in place now. And in a lot of places we can do that, in some places we can't. But where we can, it's really effective. And again, this use of technology enhances that and does support that.
Yeah, and it's feeding back to make sure that your scheduling tools, your resourcing tools, all of those things are all talking to each other as well. So technology can't exist in a technology silo. It needs to exist as part of the whole piece.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that. I'm sure they're very happy with that answer. One last question from me before we wrap up for today. When looking to make changes and improvements through technology, how important is it for you to have a partnership model with a supplier from your perspective, and what benefits do you get from such a partnership?
I would say that partnering is the new norm. It's essential. If you don't do that, you are bound by your own thinking. So when you start working with partners, you bring in their thinking as well. That's about having grown-up conversations, about negotiating agreements, about working out what you can do with your partners to make sure that you get what you need, that your partner benefits from it, but most of all, your learners benefit from the work that we do. You can't work on this in isolation. You need to have good partners.
And again, as part of the looking at different, the AMU's Moodle, free, effective, does what it needs to do. To be able to reach more people and for us to do more and be even more effective, we needed a learning management system that meets our needs. We went out to the market, looked at Blackboard and all these other ones, a lot of research, and in the end, it was that partnership with yourselves, with It's Learning, which has enabled us to choose you as our partner in moving forward with this. So again, you can't do everything by yourself. You do need those partnerships to help you develop, and you know, steal with stealth. You've got good ideas, we'll steal them with stealth. Well, we've got good ideas that you can utilize within your organization. So again, it's sharing that knowledge, sharing that understanding, sharing that journey. So partnerships has always been core to what we do here with MKC and everybody else.
I'm going to steal your steal with stealth sign. I like that. You stole my sage on the stage. That's now, I'm going to use that.
All right, well, thanks very much, guys.
Very good.
So you should be able to now see my screen. So just to wrap up, first, I'd like to say a huge thank you to both John and Kevin for hosting this today. I found it very interesting, and I hope that all of our attendees did as well. I'm sure they did. And just to wrap up, our next event is the Empower Education event. Now, this is something we've done for a good while now. We had sold out conferences in 2017, 18 and 19. We had a little gap due to COVID, of course. But yeah, really happy to announce that we'll be doing that again this year, the 5th of October. In this, we'll be focusing on the future of technology for leaders, tutors and learners, and looking at lessons learned post-COVID. So it's due to be a fantastic day. We're going to be supported by a lot of great professional industry speakers and technology users. So the event is free for everyone that's attended and registered for the webinar today. I've already sent the link through in the chat here, but we will follow up along with the recording of this session with a link to the conference. It'll be great to have you all there. But yeah, lastly, thanks again to John and Kevin, and for everyone joining today. I hope you've found it as interesting as we have. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.